Jesus Christ. That's my ex-husband, David. Please forgive me, Stella.
What do you want, David?
You deserve peace.
Michael's apartment was in Guarimpa. It wasn't a flashy duplex like David's in Wuse, but it was neat, comfortable, and peaceful. The compound had a small gate, flowers by the walkway, and neighbors who greeted politely. To me, after nights of sleeping in uncompleted buildings, it felt like paradise. When I stepped inside his home, I was struck by the simplicity. Cream-colored walls, well-arranged furniture, family photos on the wall, though I noticed there was no woman in them. Books lined a shelf, and a soft scent of air freshener lingered in the living room. Michael showed me to the guest room. "You and your son can stay here," he said, opening the door to reveal a small but clean space, a bed with fresh sheets, a wardrobe, and even a small baby cot tucked in one corner. I stared in disbelief. Are you sure about this?" I asked. He gave a small smile. "You need rest. Your child needs stability. Stay as long as you need. I won't disturb you." Tears pricked my eyes again. I had forgotten what kindness looked like. That night, I bathed my baby in warm water, fed him properly, and finally lay on a clean bed. For the first time in weeks, I slept without fear of being chased, mocked, or attacked. My son slept peacefully too, his tiny chest rising and falling in rhythm with mine. But peace can sometimes feel like a trap when you've been hurt. The next morning, as I sat in the living room sipping tea that Michael had prepared, my mind kept whispering questions. Why is he helping me? What does he want in return? Is this another Abuja man pretending like David once did? Michael noticed my silence. "You don't talk much," he said gently. I forced a smile. "I'm just not used to this. People don't help without expecting something." He leaned back, his expression calm. "Not everyone is the same, Stella. Sometimes people help simply because they can." The way he said my name made me pause. How long had it been since someone called my name without anger or insult? Days passed, and I began to see a routine forming. Michael would leave early in the morning for work. I later learned he was a civil engineer, handling construction projects around the city. Before leaving, he always checked if we needed anything. He stocked the kitchen with food, paid for my baby's medicines, and even brought toys. I stayed home, cooking, cleaning, and taking care of my child. At first, it felt strange, but slowly I started to breathe again. Yet my fears didn't vanish. Abuja had taught me that every kindness usually has a price tag. One evening, while washing plates, I asked him directly, "Michael, why are you doing all this for me? You don't even know me." He looked at me for a long moment before answering. "Maybe because I know what it feels like to be abandoned. Years ago, I was left too. My fiancée walked out of my life when I needed her most. I know how loneliness tastes. I don't want you to drown in it." His words stunned me. For the first time, I saw pain flicker in his eyes. It wasn't pity he was giving me, it was understanding. That night, as I lay in bed, I found myself thinking about him more than I wanted to. Could he be different from David? Could this be the second chance I didn't believe I deserved? But just as hope began to rise in me, a shadow also grew in my heart. Because in Abuja, nothing good ever comes without a twist. From brokenness to grace. The first morning I woke up in Michael's house felt strange, almost like waking in a dream that didn't belong to me. The sheets smelled clean, the curtains swayed gently, and the early Abuja sun painted the room in gold. For a long time, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I truly deserved peace after everything I had gone through. Michael had prepared breakfast before leaving for work: oats, sliced fruit, and a small note by the tray. "Eat something before you start thinking too much, Michael." That line made me smile for the first time in weeks. Nobody had cared enough to notice my silence before. Nobody had ever reminded me to eat because they were worried about me. As I ate slowly, tears slipped down my cheeks. Not from sadness this time, but from a strange, fragile gratitude. Days turned to weeks. Living with Michael became a kind of therapy I didn't plan for. He never forced me to talk about my past. Instead, he filled the silence with laughter, small jokes, and quiet understanding. He would knock softly before entering my room, always asking, "Are you okay today?" Sometimes I would nod, other times I would just say, "Trying." And he always replied the same way, "Trying is enough for now." One evening, as we sat on the balcony watching the city lights blink below, he said gently, "Stella, you don't have to run from love forever. Not everyone is David." I looked away, my throat tight. But what if I choose wrong again? What if I break again? He turned to me, his eyes calm and firm. "Then I'll help you rebuild again until you stop breaking." Those words hit something deep inside me. Not the kind of sweet talk men use to flatter women. No, it was the voice of someone who understood pain. I could feel it. I could trust it. Michael became more than just a man who offered me shelter. He became the anchor I never knew I needed. He taught me how to breathe again, literally. Every Sunday evening, we would go jogging through Jabi Lake Park, the air filled with the scent of damp earth and roasted corn from the nearby vendors. "Breathe in," he would say, "and let go." I would laugh at his seriousness, but deep inside, each breath truly began to loosen the chains I'd carried from my past. He encouraged me to return to my fashion designing business, the one David once mocked. He even rented a small space for me in Wuse and helped me design the signboard, "Stella's Touch, where elegance meets confidence." At first, I was scared to face the public again, scared of failure. But Michael stood by me like a shadow that brought light. He became my silent strength, driving me to the shop, waiting patiently as I arranged fabrics, clapping like a proud father when I made my first sale. Sometimes at night, I would watch him reading in the living room, glasses perched on his nose, a cup of tea beside him, and I would whisper in my heart, "Thank you, God, for giving me another chance." The proposal. It happened one evening when Abuja skies turned orange and the breeze carried the smell of rain. I had just returned from the shop, exhausted but happy. Michael had asked me to dress nicely for dinner, saying, "We're celebrating your first profit day." I didn't suspect anything. We drove to a small rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. The place glittered with fairy lights, and a soft saxophone played in the background. My heart fluttered, half from excitement, half from disbelief. This was the same Stella who once cried herself to sleep in a rented apartment, now sitting under stars beside a man who truly saw her. After dinner, Michael stood up and took my hands. "Stella, I've watched you heal, rise, and smile again. You've taught me what strength looks like. I don't just want to love you, I want to walk life with you. Will you marry me?" For a second, the world went quiet. My vision blurred with tears. All the pain, all the memories of rejection, all the nights of fear, they melted into one word: yes. The restaurant staff clapped. Michael slipped the ring onto my finger, and I knew in that moment that love could truly grow in broken soil. Marriage and peace. Our marriage was simple yet beautiful, held in a quiet church in Maitama, attended by close friends and the few family members who stood by me during my darkest days. As we exchanged vows, I felt like I was finally letting go of David's shadow. Marriage with Michael was peaceful, not perfect, but gentle and real. He respected my space, understood my silence, and celebrated my small victories. He called me queen, not because I was flawless, but because he saw the royalty in my resilience. We traveled to Jos for our honeymoon, hiking through green hills and sipping warm cocoa in wooden cabins. Every night before sleeping, he would hold my hand and pray. That prayer healed places no doctor could reach. Months turned into a year. My business grew. We moved into a modest duplex in Guarimpa. I started a foundation that helped abused women find jobs and safe housing. Life finally felt fair again, until that one afternoon.
We were driving back from a charity event in Kubwa. The weather was calm, the radio played soft gospel music, and Michael's hand rested lightly on mine. I leaned back, watching the trees rush by. Then suddenly, something caught my eye. A man walking along the road in torn clothes, his beard unkempt, his shoes barely holding together. Something about his posture, the familiar curve of his shoulders, made my heart skip. Then he turned, and my breath froze. "Jesus Christ!" I gasped, clutching Michael's arm. That's David, my ex-husband!" Michael slowed the car immediately. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. David, once proud, polished, and arrogant, now looked like a shadow of himself. His eyes were sunken, his clothes dirty, his steps weak. Michael parked by the roadside. "Are you sure it's him?" he asked quietly. I nodded, trembling. "Yes, that's him." I stepped out of the car, my heels sinking into the dust. "David?" I called softly. He turned again, his face lighting with shock, then shame. "Stella," he whispered as tears filled his eyes. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The world around us went still. Then he fell to his knees right there on the roadside. "Please, forgive me. I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. She, she scammed me, Stella. The woman I left you for. She took everything. My money, my properties, even my dignity. I'm finished." I felt my chest tighten. Michael came to stand beside me, silent but firm, his hand resting gently on my back. David looked up at him, then at me. "I deserve this," he continued, sobbing. "I mocked your pain. I laughed at your tears. I thought I was too smart for consequences. But God humbled me." I wanted to feel anger. I wanted to remind him of the nights I cried myself to sleep, of the insults, of how he left me with nothing. But instead, what I felt was pity. I knelt beside him slowly. "David, I forgave you long ago, not because you deserve it, but because I needed peace." He looked at me in disbelief. You forgave me?" I nodded. "Yes, I found love again, real love. And I found God too. You can start over, David. It's not too late." Michael reached into his wallet and handed him some money quietly. "Get yourself a meal," he said gently. "Find a church. Start again." He took it with shaking hands. "Thank you. You're a better man than I ever was." We left him there, not out of pride, but because some journeys must be walked alone. As we drove away, I watched through the window as David sank to the ground, clutching the money, tears streaming down his face.
That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of David kept flashing in my mind. The once proud man now humbled by his own choices. Michael drew me close and said, "Sometimes God lets us see our past not to hurt us, but to remind us how far we've come." I smiled faintly. He looked lost. "Then maybe your forgiveness will guide him home," he replied softly. I turned and looked at my husband, the man who turned my pain into purpose. And for the first time, I understood what grace truly meant. Because sometimes the people who break you are the ones God uses to teach you the meaning of restoration. Moral lesson: forgiveness doesn't erase the past, but it frees your heart from its prison. Sometimes God allows your pain to become someone else's path to redemption. Wow, what a journey, my people, heartbroken. If you want me to continue this story, part 3, just let me know in the comments section. Once I see your responses, I'll proceed immediately. God bless. You all are my backbone, the reason I keep creating these powerful stories that touch lives and heal hearts. Remember, every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday at 7 p.m., a brand new emotional story drops right here. So please, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. This is Zita Story Headquarter, where emotions speak louder than words.